Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. The Ultimate Crew Cab back here has been getting all the love on the channel lately, but it's time to get back on my other project, my 1967 Crew Cab. We got to get the engine and transmission mounted in the frame and then get the cab ready to go to sandblasting and primed up so we can start on bodywork on it. So let's go get after it. Alright guys, like I said, we're going to be working on my 1967 Crew Cab today with the 7.3 Godzilla. I want to get the engine mounted in the frame and make sure everything's going to be happy with the firewall and such. So anything that I need to modify or adjust, I can do that before it goes to blasting and primed up. Not a big deal if I have to do it afterwards, but it's just a lot better to do all the welding and cutting and everything before we get all that nice layer of epoxy primer on there. So we don't have to redo that kind of stuff. So I'm going to get the engine set in the frame and kind of where I think it's going to set, and then drop the cab back down and see how our clearances are. Luckily, I did get this nice cab mount or engine mount set, and it does have different holes. If you can see, different holes where you can move things if I have to. I want to try to get it right on the first time, but if I do get it all welded up and then I get it down and find an issue somewhere, I can move it over a hole and give us a little bit more clearance, but hopefully everything fits good. I know this should fit all right, definitely because the 6.7 Power Stroke in our Ultimate Crew Cab back there, it fits great in here, and it's a much bigger engine, so a lot more going on with it since it's got turbos and downpipes and all that kind of stuff. This won't have that. So I guess the first step is going to be just to yank the cab back off of this thing, and then I'm going to get the forklift in here and just kind of set the engine in there and see, how things go. All right, well, I got the engine in. It did fight me a little bit. I ran into some problems. I didn't have it picked up far enough out on the forks of the forklift, and I was hitting the frame. But I got it adjusted and then set back in there. Right now, it is just very loosely set in there. I just have it set on a block of wood under the cross member to give it clearance. And I'm using the factory trans mount back there and some shims, and just got it shimmed up. And then I put some ratchet straps on it just to keep it from wanting to fall off, although it's pretty solid. Unfortunately, I did have to roll the frame out to clear the rack on the forklift from hitting the grill. I was hoping I didn't have to do that and I could just drop the cab back down, but I will have to roll it back and get it lined back up. But that's going to be the next step, is lining it back up and dropping it and seeing where we are in the space of the engine bay. I think we're pretty close. Down here on the drop cross member, or the drop oil pan and the cross member clearance, we have a good 1.5 inches. So I can tighten it up if I have to, but I'd much rather not. So, you know, the clearance with the firewall is what would dictate that. Another thing I want to check is back here on the transmission and make sure we're not getting too close to this cross member on the cab, because I have ran into that before, but that was whenever I had a married transmission on my Ultimate Highboy with a 205 transmission behind the 6R80, which is a smaller transmission than this. The transfer case likes to hit this cross member, and I had to clearance it some. So I think we're going to end up right about here somewhere, but we'll find out. There is lots of room in these high hump transmission floors, so luckily we have a lot of room for this great big transmission. The factory engines on these trucks are offset to the passenger side, so the transmission tunnel is as well. I tried to do that as much as possible so I'd have as much room, but I'm limited to the clearance with the frame rails and the exhaust manifolds. So we'll see how that ends up. We're really close on that side. I didn't want to move it over any farther. So we'll just see how it lines up and how it works, and we'll go from there. The inner fenders, I haven't checked those yet, but that's another thing we're going to have to watch as it comes down and make sure those inner fenders don't catch anything on the engine. But yeah, I'm going to get this thing lined back up and drop the cab down, and we'll see how it goes. The cab most of the way down. We have about, what is that, probably 1.5 inches to go. Everything was going really good, everything cleared with a lot of room, except the booster there, the brake booster. It's going to hit that coil pack right on top of the valve cover. So I'm going to yank that booster out so we can go all the way down. Looks like we're probably going to have to do a Hydro boost or something of that nature, and maybe we'll have more clearance once it's down all the way, because no, we'll have less clearance. I'm thinking wrong. I was thinking the other way around. So that's definitely not going to work. We'll probably end up with a Hydro boost up there or something of that nature, which is fine because we have a great big power steering pump down here that we can utilize. The transmission dipstick is hitting the firewall there, although that is not too critical. You see that guy right there is hitting. You know, I can bend and move that if I want to use this one, or if I want to use a different one. I'm not sure yet. That one's kind of up there and kind of ugly. I might see if I can get an aftermarket dipstick to do something different there. We'll kill two birds with one stone. We'll get rid of this ugly dipstick, and we'll make some clearance there. But so far, everything went really good. There is lots of room with the inner fenders. I'm happy about that. After doing that, my Ultimate Crew Cab over there with the diesel, this thing is like a piece of cake. You can see down there my engine mounts, motor mounts. I'm going to have 2 pieces of plate steel coming off of those, and then I'm going to have a piece of plate steel mounted on the cross member down there, so it's going to be bolted in so it can be removed to just make things easier to get things out of the way. If I welded them in there, it'd just be harder to get the engine in and out. So that's going to be pretty easy, but I want to get everything kind of oriented where I want it first, and then I'll weld those with the cab up out of the way. So I'm going to get to removing that brake booster. Should just be a few bolts under there, and I need to take the pedal assembly and everything out anyway, so that'll just take a minute, and we'll see if we can get this thing down all the way. All right, I have the booster out of the way, so we have lots of room now. We shouldn't have any problem setting it down. So let's see how it goes. If I can do this with one hand while holding the camera. Heard lots of noises, that's never good. I think it was just stuff settling down because we're on the cab mounts. I checked everything, it should be good. The only thing that was really touching was this dipstick tube, and it is all nice and free. So I think we were just hearing the cab mount squeeze out, basically. Let's go ahead and get her set down all the way. Yep, it's off now, so we are in. I really like that position. I don't think we are too far back. I can give you guys a good look. It's pretty tight up in here. Go over here, yeah. You can see we still got lots of room back there. You can see, you guys probably got a better shot than I do. Looks like that transmission dipstick actually does clear. So I can keep it if I want to, if I don't find a better solution than this one. Man, it's for a van, an E-350. So, you know, they just have these little hoods right here. So you pop this, so your stuff's way up here up front. And that's why this thing comes way out here. Because basically this would be shoved up under the cowl of that van. So this thing is a lot longer than it needs to be. Although it'd be real handy. I don't know how often you're going to be checking your transmission fluid on this truck. I'll see what there is in the aftermarket. But yeah, really happy with this. I'm just going to double check all my measurements, make sure it's exactly where I want. And then I'm going to start fabricating the plates I need for the engine mounts. You can see here the ones that comes with it. These are going to be way too long. I'll have to cut them down. But they're universal, so better to be too long than too short. I'll cut them down, and they're going to go down in here. And yeah, I'll just weld them in. And once I get the engine in place and the angle I like, because I'll have to set the angle, I'll do the transmission cross member as well and get the transmission all sorted out. But yeah, this is going pretty good. There's lots of room here. I like this. I was kind of worried about the width of the engine, but it's really pretty compact. So we have lots of room here for a steering shaft and the steering box down here. The only thing is that brake booster is probably going to be in the way. I'll probably have to run a Hydro Boost, but it looks like we have lots of room for a Hydro Boost. So yeah, everything's going together pretty well. I'm going to get to knocking out those cab mounts, and we'll see what I come up with. Well, I found where all those noises were coming from. We're still a little high on the transmission. It is touching up here in the transmission area. So we're still pretty close there, but that's all right. I think we're still pretty high on our output shaft of our transmission. When I was setting that up, just kind of by eyeball, I forgot that the frame has a rake to it because I don't have enough blocks in the back. So it already has a rake like this. And I was kind of eyeballing it without that rake. So I think we need to drop it down a lot more so that the output shaft is a lot lower, because it actually runs into, the drive shaft run into the cross member that goes into the floor here. So we still have like an inch or more to drop down to get correct drive shaft angles and all of that. So I think that'll clear, but it is pretty darn close. And you can see here the offset transmission tunnel there. But I think we're going to have to live with it more centered so that exhaust has room. Because if I moved it over to be centered with that hump, our passenger side exhaust manifold would dump right into the frame rail. So I'm going to leave it like that for now. I'm just going to double check everything as far as fitment and alignment goes. I'll mess with the angles once the cab gets picked back up. So I'm going to make sure it's front to back where I want it and side to side where I want it, the engine and the engine bay. And then once I get that all squared away, I'll pick the cab up, and then we'll start on the mounts and the drive shaft angles and all that, because I want to get that sorted before I start welding the mounts in. So that's all right. But just going to be a lot of measuring, and then once I get all that done, I'll catch back up with you guys. All right, guys, we'll have the cab picked back up, and I kind of looked everything over. A few things I want to change. I think side to side it is pretty good. This side is pretty tight right here with the exhaust. as well as that side. See, it kind of kicks out. This distribution block is not going to be here. I'm not going to use that one because we're doing disc brakes, so I'm going to change that. But hopefully we have enough room here. I didn't want to move it over anymore because then we'd be getting into the frame a bit more. So I think that's pretty good side to side wise. And front to back, I'm pretty happy with that. Our compressor for the AC is very close there. I might pick the engine up slightly, you know, and just give that a little bit more clearance so when the engine, you know, moves and stuff, we're not rubbing right there. But good thing about not having anything welded in yet is I can adjust that. The cab mounts over here, not the cab mounts, the motor mounts, I did get ones that are adjustable, and I'm glad I did because I just put them in the center. And you can see here where the holes are, the plate, it would be pretty far back and it would be like right on the edge. So I'm going to actually move this forward a hole and get that more centered in this plate here, or so the plate is more where the original cab mount was, and there's room to get bolts in there. So I'm going to adjust that. I'll probably pick the engine up to adjust that and probably shim it up some more so we have a little bit more clearance for that AC. But I've also been checking the angles, and I measured off of a factory highboy truck, and they are 4 degrees. And this one right now we're sitting at 2.5, 2.8, almost 3. So we need to come down quite a bit more, about like that. So I am going to drop the end of the transmission down a little bit and get that angle right before I weld anything in. So we're going to mimic a highboy truck because we're going into a divorce transfer case, and the angles of that transfer case are going to be the same as a highboy truck. So we're going to mimic the drive shaft angles of the highboy, so we have everything's nice and happy there. But this is going good, pretty good so far. I'm going to work on making the plates that fit right here, so I can bolt those to the frame, and then have the supports off of that I can weld in place there. So I'm going to work on that. We might pick the engine up again, and I'm going to drop the end of the transmission down. All right, well, I have kind of the cab mount solution kind of working in my head. Here's the plates I made, you know, just some plate steel. They're going to bolt in place of the factory frame pedestals. And I already have this one over here bolted in. I don't have the top bolts because there's no, the factory pedestal bolts up here. So once I have the engine out, I'm going to drill through here to get through both the frame and the plates. But I just have them kind of bolted in place for now, so I can get the locations sorted out. I don't have the other one in yet because I don't have the holes drilled in it. But I did drop the end of the transmission down a little bit. We still need to drop about 1/2 degree more to get the angle just right. So I'm going to shim up the front. I have a couple pieces of shim stock here, just because I don't know what I need to get the angle right. I'm going to try either one of them. If it's wrong, I'll have to start searching for some other stuff to kind of shim up the engine to get it up just a little bit higher. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm really concerned about how the AC compressor is going to work out there. But if worst comes to worst, we'll just notch that frame and give it some more clearance, so we don't have to worry about it rubbing there. But overall, doing pretty good. I am going to drop the the cab down, and check the clearance on the transmission. And then after I decide that's good, I'm going to lift it up with the forklift. But if the transmission still needs more clearance in the under the cab there, I'm probably going to end up dropping the transmission more versus raising the engine up. But I would prefer to do the engine so we can have more clearance of that AC compressor. So that's how it's all going in my head. I also did some measurements on the exhaust with this engine from Godzilla Garage. I don't know if I mentioned that. I did get this engine from Godzilla Garage. If you guys want to get one for yourself, I'll link to them down in the description under this video. They have these engines or takeouts from vans or E350s doing EV conversions on. And these only have delivery miles. They're like 17 miles or 16 miles, something like that. Just delivery, driving in and off the train or the transport truck or however they're getting them to their location where they're EV converting them. And it comes with a 6R80 and then the Godzilla with all the accessories and everything on it. So when you get the Ford engine, it doesn't have all the accessories and it doesn't come with a 6R80. The only problem with that is there is no controller for the 6R80, so you have to run the ECU that comes with these. But luckily enough, you can get that with them and a standalone harness, which is what I got. So we'll be using all of that stuff to make this thing run. But with all of that, I got the Y pipe for the exhaust, and I was kind of just planning on using it as is and kind of make it easier to route everything. But unfortunately, the exhaust is going. It comes on the van or whatever it's in. It comes out, and it's going to actually be like right here. So the passenger side I might be able to use, but the driver's side is definitely not going to work. I'll probably just end up making my own custom piece, just so it all fits the application perfectly, and I'm not dealing with, you know, making other stuff fit because I don't want to cut up the exhaust, and I'm already having to cut it up here, so I might as well just make it all new. I'll probably do like a whole stainless exhaust on this thing. I'm pretty good with stainless, so we'll see how that goes. We're pretty far from that point. For now, I'm going to drop the cab down, and I'm going to show you guys how we are with the transmission fitment and see how that goes. All right, cab is back down. I think we are good except one little spot. Luckily, this transmission fit ends right at the edge of the transmission tunnel there, so that is good. Right here we clear everything. The only problem is right here it is touching, but we have this great big strengthening fin right there. I'm gonna clean that up just a little bit and give us some clearance, and I think we are good. We clear here. The vent line here is clearing, although I might reroute it because it is rubbing there. I wouldn't want it to rub a hole in it. But it is fitting. This is definitely a tighter fit than the 6R 140 that's in my Ultimate Crew Cab over there. But it's sitting on a Super Duty frame, and the cab is a little bit higher just for clearances of the way the frame rails and everything are. So this isn't apples to apples. So it is tucked up in there a lot more. But with that high hump cover, we have room, you know, it goes up higher than that, up about here. So it's going to fit pretty tight. I am going to have to try to fit a four-wheel drive shifter in here somehow. I remember it was tight on my Ultimate Highboy, this kind of the same situation. And I had a flat bar that went through here, and that did the changing of the gears, and I had it down there to a bearing down here. But I had to use flat bar to get it snaked between the transmission case in here. And I can also clearance this a little bit if I have to. Just to kind of give us some more room, but I'd much rather leave it all stock. So after all this went, I'm going to lift up the engine, put a little bit of shim in there to get this to like 4 degrees is what the Highboy was. Right now we're like 3.5, so just a little bit, and we'll see how it turns out. All right, guys, got the cab back up in the air, and I have the engine set to the degree I want. The factory Highboys ended up being about 4.5 degrees. Took different measurements from the engine and the transfer case. The engine on the one I measured was with new motor mounts and transmission mounts and everything was between 4.8 and 5.2 depending on the location that I measured on the engine or the transmission. And then the angle of the transfer case ended up being less than that. It was like 4.1 to 4.3. So I kind of split the difference and just did like 4.5. Depending on where I measure it on here, we're generally about 4.25 to 4.5 degrees. Just using my little digital angle finder thing here. So I think that will be good enough. And it took both of my shims of metal here. I used a piece of I think that's 1/4 inch strap iron, and then a thinner piece of 16 gauge. Is another shim there, and then I have my 2x4 there, and that gave us plenty of clearance for my AC compressor, so I knocked out 2 birds with 1 stone. That worked out really nice. Got good clearance there, we don't have to worry about that. And we have our angle right. I did check the angle side to side. There's not really any flat spots to do that. I did find this spot right here, and I measured it off of that. Hopefully that's good enough. And you know, just to get the rock of the engine in there right. Next step is going to be to drop the cab back down, make sure everything still clears, and then we'll go to making our cab mounts. Here's the pieces I'll use that are in the kit. I'll obviously have to trim some of this off because it's universal, you know, so I'll put those in here, get them all trimmed up, and then I'll weld them to that plate. Do the same for the other side. And I have a cross member for the transmission ordered. That was kind of tricky. The way these are set up, the transmission mount is there's a lot of thickness to that, so getting a mount to drop down low enough to use that factory mount is what I ended up going with. I considered doing a different kind of like polyurethane mount on these bolt holes here, but it wouldn't have the ability to rock back and forth as well as something like this, where I think it's kind of made to be able to do that. So you know, when the engine torques, this mount right here can rock, so they're not fighting against those little mounts right there. So with the factory mount mounted on the bottom of that, I got like a 6-inch drop transmission cross member. I'll show you guys that when it gets in. I just ordered it this afternoon, so we don't have it yet. So I'm gonna get knocking out on those engine mounts. Hopefully we get the engine all solidly mounted, and we'll move on from that. All right, guys. Well, I'm working on the engine mounts here, and specifically the little brackets here. All right, guys. Well, I'm working on the engine mounts, and specifically the little brackets here that I'm going to weld onto those pads that I bolted to the frame there. And I got these all. Well, I got this one done right here, and I was kind of scratching my head on how I wanted to do this. It's kind of a tricky situation because these are longer. The original ones right here, if you can see how much longer they are, you have to figure out how much to cut off. And the way I did it, and it worked really well, so I thought I would share it here, is I took the full length piece and set it in here, and it was way up like this, like that. And then I'll have to set that down because I got a camera in my hand. Then I took a Sharpie and stuck it in the hole here, and just went in there and stuck it all the way through the hole. And there's my dot right there, so I marked it on this, and then I measured from this dot to the center line of that hole, and then I went and scribed a line down at the bottom and cut it off there, and it worked great. So I can't do that everywhere because they're too tall, they don't fit, but like this one, I can go off of this one. This side's going to be just a little bit shorter because that engine's raked back, and I'm going to take this and just kind of guesstimate. And if I get close, then I can kind of trim it off from there, because I got my bandsaw does a really good job at making really thin cuts. But I think I can get close the first try. And on the other side, there's even less room, so I'm going to just make a cut to where they fit in there, and then I'm going to redo them with the Sharpie, and then I'll know a precise measurement of where to cut, and we'll see how it goes. And wish me luck. Hopefully I don't screw any of them up and have to add pieces back on. All right, well, I have everything tacked together. Went together pretty smooth. This side over here is pretty tight, but I was able to get it done. So those fit perfectly. I'm really happy with the placement. I'm extremely happy that the AC compressor is clearing. I don't have to deal with that. Here's a better look at the other side. I'm also happy, I don't know if I mentioned this before, I can't remember. I'm happy I got the adjustable cab mounts, or motor mounts, because see those holes there, you know, that's adjustable, because where I placed the engine, I moved them all the way forward, and it worked out well there on that cross member. If it was just in the center, like some of the cheaper cab mounts, it would have been totally off of the cross member here. So that worked out pretty well. Pretty happy with that. Next, we just got to wait on that transmission cross member. But really, that is kind of down the road and not important right now. The main thing was I wanted to get this engine location sorted out and completely figured out where I want, while I still have the cab here and all together with the inner fenders and everything. So since I have all that sorted, I am probably going to start stripping the cab down and getting it ready for media blasting. And there's a lot of cleanup I have to do. There's a lot of holes I have to patch on the underside in the floor, just like drill holes and stuff. And there is one little rust spot right there. I want to fix that. And I really need to get this grease and grime off of here before they blast it, because it makes a lot better work for them anyway, if they don't have to deal with that. There's a hole over there on that cross member that someone torched up. And there's a little rust spot on the roof up there. And then there's a spot on the door on the other side I want to work on before it goes to the media blaster. And yeah, I have to do all that work and get that knocked out. So I'm probably going to cut this episode short right here. It's kind of didn't really get it fully installed, the engine, but we kind of got everything sorted out. Give you guys a little bit of content here while I'm kind of busy doing other things. Not getting a lot of shop time right now. But we're going to get this engine finished up at a later date with the finish welding the motor mounts, and then that transmission mount. We'll probably work that into this project here at some point and down the road in the videos. But for now, I'm just going to be stripping this thing down and like pressure washing it and welding up holes. And we'll probably get it to the sandblaster, so then I can start on the body work on it and get that going. But now that we have the engine in place and everything sorted there, I can kind of work on the engine and the chassis as well, getting things kind of figured out and lined out there as far as steering and all of that kind of stuff. That just takes forever. And the transfer case, I got to figure out the transfer case. But for now, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video with the new 7.3 Godzilla engine. This is going to be a fun build. Give me a thumbs up if you like this truck. Subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks for watching, guys.